Welcome to Straight Shot Politics. Each episode will bring you in-depth discussion with experts, community leaders, and analysts who will share their insights, experiences, and predictions. From local elections to global diplomacy, we'll provide you with the tools and perspectives you'll need to navigate today's real-world landscape. The views expressed by our guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of the hosts, producers, or this podcast. This podcast is an independent production and is not affiliated with, endorsed by, or sponsored by any organization unless explicitly stated.
So the last thing we talked about was why. And Josh, you posed a good question. Is it the ideology? And that is the one thing that I noticed from the get-go after the two of you were sworn in and people started coming to me with, Lisa, this is happening. Can you help us? Can you help us expose this? And it is the total, every administrator that I have dealt with, total full-on wokeness. That's what they're trying to protect. They really believe this left ideology that the schools know more, they know better than the parents. I've had librarians tell me, oh, I have a master's degree, so you need to sit down and shut up.
I don't care what a piece of paper tells you.
Exactly.
You can have all the pieces of paper on the wall you want if you don't have a damn lick of common sense.
Exactly. So, and Zach, you had mentioned that you were grateful that the superintendent did have conversations with you about the problems at Davidson. But as you know, he didn't do anything with it. Well, that's obvious. I mean, there were no results. I just had communication with that individual 2 weeks ago, and it was even worse at the end of this school year.
He did reach out to the principal there and talked with him, and they went over some of the issues. It comes down to, what are the results that you're producing? And I had really hoped that, I had a couple phone calls during our last month or two on the board, and, my response to those folks when they reached out for the last time was like, I'm really sorry. I felt like I was trying to do the thing that I could to help your situation, and I feel like I failed. And they were all very appreciative. And a lot of times people just wanted to have their feelings and concerns heard.
Yeah. And
they wanted to share it with somebody who cared. And I think that was one of the biggest things, I guess you could call it kind of a Pyrrhic victory, in that we did do a lot of listening. But unfortunately, it sounds like it hasn't produced a better result for a lot of people.
So let me ask you this, because there's a machine going on there in the district that we're not privy to. So what Janet explained to us, 24-25 school year, the first 2 weeks at Davidson, 9 gun threats. Parents weren't notified. Were you guys notified as board members about those gun threats?
Not about 9 of them.
Yeah, I feel like there were times where we had specific incidences forwarded to us. That stuff is usually handled at the building level, and then they forward it to central office. They have some kind of protocol for what gets alerted to central office and what doesn't. But I don't remember hearing the number 9. Mm-hmm. But I feel like at its core, a lot of this stuff, the district, any school district, is expected to deal with the fallout of kids who have issues at home. It's a lot of societal and cultural issues that kind of come to a head at school. And I think there's a real disconnect because people feel like they're being blamed because a kid who has a really rough home life is acting up. And it's like, well, we don't hold you accountable for the way that they act up, but how we respond to it as a district is what we can control, and that's what we should focus on. So,
and that's what several of people at multiple schools in the district have confided in me, that they felt so frustrated because they have one kid in the classroom that's causing all this disruption. And after sending them to the principal's office 2 or 3 times, the principal comes back and says, don't send this kid to me anymore. You keep him in the classroom. So if you got 25 kids in that classroom, 24 of them are having their learning impeded because of one. Mm-hmm. And I admit, we have a generation of parents who aren't parenting. They're not disciplining their kids at home. If the school calls the parent, say, hey, your kid's doing X, Y, and Z, the parent takes it out. No, you're lying. My kid would never do that. My kid's perfect. That kind of attitude. They don't want to deal with it. But when you've got repeated offenses at one school in particular, And the SRO officer is not even allowed to do his job because of this mentality of oh, they come from a bad family, or mom's an alcoholic, or this kid is gay, they're being bullied, or this is a serious problem.
Yeah, if you excuse a kid's bad behavior repeatedly, you're not helping them in the long run. And I think we all see that with our own kids too, that you don't put up with it for forever because it doesn't get better, it gets worse. So that was something that all the folks that talked to me had almost the exact same experience of, kids walking into the principal's office and then walking out and laughing as they walk down the hallway saying, I got away with that shit. And, kids stealing from the cafeteria, kids wandering around the hallway and vandalizing bathrooms and
selling drugs
and gang issues and stuff that is not abnormal for high school kids to do. But the way that we respond and react to it is that's what our responsibility is as adults. That's the difference between us and kids, is how we react to it.
But here's the worst part of it, at that school in particular. It's not just the kids who are bullies. The teachers, some of them, especially in the union. We know our dear friend Mike Carney was bullied horrifically, been teaching at that school for 20 years. And when he ran, and he's a devout Christian who refused to use the preferred pronouns, he came up with an alternative plan. And they still bullied him and bullied him and bullied him. Other teachers did. Until finally he gave up and he left. That's what they do.
Well, there's a lot more to it. If you want to have a Mike Carney episode, I think we could probably do a whole other episode.
Yeah, we could. But I'm just saying that's just one example.
Funny thing, I ran into Mike at the 4th of July parade.
Oh, yeah.
He was back in town, yeah.
Yeah,
Said hi to
he's
him,
doing
how
great. He's a lot
That's
happier.
great, yeah.
But the teachers union, they're terrible. Okay, so let's backtrack. We talked about the lanyards, the badges. It took us filing, and I say us, me and 9 other parents, filing a lawsuit against the district, and I'm sorry you two were caught up in that, to try and get these things stopped. And yet they're still doing it. They're still wearing the badges. The superintendent's resolution was, let's put tape over the QR code, and that's that. Well, that doesn't stop anything. It doesn't stop the mentality. It seems like administration really doesn't have control. The teachers union has control.
I think a lot of the badge thing, a lot of the folks that wear them, in most workplaces, there's let's just kind of go along with what everybody else is doing, and they want to be nice and supportive. And the thing that I don't get is it's pretty explicitly coded towards sexuality. It had the link on the back was all towards sexuality-based things about educating kids on sexuality, and the front is literally a pride flag and a trans flag in that color pattern on that side. So it's pretty explicitly towards that. And, we have a lot of buildings where, we have kids K through 2. Yeah. The core of this is, I don't think many people are rooted in bigotry about all this. No. I don't care. It's what other people do is their business. I have, moms in my kids' building who are lesbians that their kid is in my son's class. That's great. We all see this stuff, and what people do is their business. I just don't think that we should be messaging to kids about it. And I think that a lot of the wires got crossed with that because people didn't understand that this is about, hey, we just don't want messaging to our children to be happening about this topic. It's not about what adults do in their private lives. That's absolutely none of their business, and I'm totally open to it.
I don't understand this obsession that some of these teachers have of getting involved in children's sexuality lives, like children's sex lives. Like, it's so important to them. It's like it's something that they're cultivating. Like I can't quite put my finger on it. It's almost like Munchausen, where it's just like
Well, it's the same thing we dealt with the books. Mm-hmm. It's like I 100%. I am a free speech absolutist.
So am I.
I will defend your ability to say the most horrific things ever. However, what you say to children or what you put in front of children is a different standard. And, I was accused of, you want to ban books. And I'm thinking to myself, boy, if saying a book should not be in an elementary school library is banning it, then there are millions of books that are banned because you only have so many in that elementary school library. Let's pick things that avoid the sexual topics. Let's pick things that avoid. One particular one I read that hit me really hard was in a middle school, and it was really graphic about suicide. And that's something my family has dealt with. And, you know, I if my son had wanted to read that in that middle school age, I definitely want to know about it and have a very explicit conversation with him about that subject matter.
That's so funny you mentioned it. I'm actually, and I don't want to get into my personal family life, but I'm dealing with something a little similar to that. And it's funny, it is middle school age. It is that 12 to 14-year-old mind. And so we've had some issues and it's been rough, but I'm glad that he couldn't just go into the school library and pick up a book about that explicitly lays it out, or is like, here's what you do. Like, to me, all that does, and you can say, well, we're just trying to educate about this is what some people deal with. Yeah, but you make a video on the internet about how to make a nuclear bomb.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Well,
like,
That was something that came up. I brought a book to the administration's attention, and it actually talked about using drugs in a way that would make intercourse easier. And I'm like, you know, if we had a book that told kids how to make a pipe bomb, like,
right.
No, and no kid needs a book to learn this stuff. They all have iPhones. They all can look it up. They don't need us to supply it to them. But it sends a bad message if we're supplying this stuff to them. And I think the whole book thing is a lot like the badge thing. There were a lot of disingenuous arguments on the other side. And the point that they thought we were trying to make, oh, you're trying to ban books. No, I think we're trying to have an adult discussion about what's appropriate for us to provide to children. And we just could never have a fair, open talk about it. It just wasn't
because
something
they
that
accused
happened.
us of and two of my mom friends, Cindy and Sarah, read the 40 books that we presented to the board to have removed for consideration. Some of these books gave explicit instructions on how to perform sexual acts. Some of these books, if I were to walk up to a 10-year-old out on the street and hand them this book, I would be arrested for disseminating pornography. That's how bad some of these books were. And Kelly Arnold, who is currently on the board president, I think. No, vice president, excuse me. Either way, she claimed to have read all 40 books, and she walked into a board meeting, this is before she became a board member, and said, I read all these books and I don't have any problems with them. We're talking about...
and I have no problems with them for her either.
Yeah.
As an adult, she can read whatever she wants.
And this was, to me, the most disingenuous argument I heard from the left was, well, if I want my kid to read that book, then it should be in the library. Okay, well, look, you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. I don't want my kid exposed to this kind of material. And if you have it sitting out, I can't take it back. You absolutely cannot take. And what is the point? And it's so freaking condescending that all of these books, in some way or another, had homosexuality in it. Which, again, I don't care what people you do you, but when you're saying that the homosexual kids need these books to learn about sex, as a straight kid, I didn't need to read a book to learn about sex. It kind of just comes naturally for the most part. You know, it to me, it's just very condescending.
To me, it goes back to something that I fundamentally believe, which is that I think there is an agenda. Mm-hmm. I think they are grooming. Grooming? Not explicit grooming in the sense we think of it as, like, you know, but almost grooming kids to value these sort of what we would call perverted, non-traditional values, which goes back to what I think the ultimate goal is, which is you look at education, it is rooted right now in the Saul Alinsky Marxist territory. And part of that, too, is to cut the parents out, because the destruction of the core nuclear family is one of the ways you can basically just destroy Western civilization as we know it. I think it is more of like out of almost like an effort, we have got to subvert the parents at any cost because we know better. We're the guardians of truth. We're the guardians of morality, and we want kids to do all these things and learn about all these things. And the parents, if they say otherwise, they can't be trusted. Like, to me, that's what it is, and because it goes back to undermine the nuclear family. That's where I think I come back to. Otherwise, why are you taking such an interest in making sure kids are up to date on sex? I mean, what adults should not be thinking about children's sexuality. I don't care if it's 8 or 18, whatever.
Don't they have a special name for those people? Minor attracted people?
Minor attracted
something.
persons.
There we go.
Well, I would push back. I would say if there's any sort of agenda, it's coming from a really high level, namely like national teachers unions. I think the onus of most of the frontline and classroom teachers and librarians is, for the most part, to just be loving and accepting. And this is their way of showing that. Even though I think a lot of parents might disagree with the appropriateness of it being something that's shared at school. I don't think
these ideas generate on their own.
Yeah,
by the way. I think they're funneled down from a very higher level. Of course.
I don't think the people that are actually in the classroom are doing it from a mean-spirited or agenda-driven way. I think it comes from several notches higher up, namely National Teachers Union.
But that's a more generalized cultural thing. Is this push towards eroding parental rights and subverting what the values of the parents are? That's like a 30,000 foot just general kind of problem in our society that is now has filtered down into the school system.
Yeah, and it absolutely matters because during any given school day, the folks in the school building have more face-to-face time with my kids than I do.
Right. Yeah.
So that's why it does matter what's going on and what's in the building. That's why we care. That's why we raise money. That's why we push to do homework. That's why we do all this stuff, is because it matters what happens there.
And I understand in theory, and I'm not trying to pick on any one group, but it's the best example. Teachers, administrators who are gay or lesbian gay, and in their youth, were probably bullied. Traditionally in the United States, up until the last 30, 40 years, gay people have been treated terribly. And so they were bullied, and so they want to make kids who they see themselves in not have to experience that. But the problem is the methodology, the mechanism. So they've created a system that's actually now bullying the straight kids and blaming the straight kids for how the gay kids are feeling and that we're responsible for them. And it's just become an evil monster. But there's another big issue that I wanted to talk to you guys about, because now it's national news that the Department of Education is now focusing on school districts who simply move teachers around when they are accused of having inappropriate relationships with students. Now, during your tenure on the board, how many cases that you're aware of teachers in Hilliard were accused of having inappropriate relations with students?
I think we're not really supposed to get into that. A lot of deeply personnel-related issues like that.
I'm not asking for names, but
there's stuff that's been publicly reported multiple times in the news. A teacher who got brought up on battery charges because of an inappropriate relationship. So it definitely does. It's definitely not any significant majority or anything, but it definitely does happen.
So if you can divulge, what do you recall of the policy of how it's handled when a teacher is accused?
Well, by Ohio law, if a teacher is something they call unprofessional conduct, then, or if a teacher is let go and allowed to resign when an investigation is underway, then the district has to report that to the State Board of Education, Office of Professional Conduct, for them to investigate. So I am confident that happened whenever Hilliard had that situation, that report was made. The other problems, though, are, okay, so you make the report to the Office of Professional Conduct. How long does it take them to investigate? How long does it take them to take any action? A lot of times when there's, their investigations are confidential, so it's not, the school district files that report. That is not a public record. So there's a lot of things going on that are just outside of the public purview that perhaps should be more transparent to the public to give people more, more insight into actually what's going on, as opposed to, hey, I just saw in the news this guy was convicted of this stuff he did 8 years ago. What's he been doing in the last 8 years? Mm-hmm. And that sort of thing. And, that's a black hole right now. And it's just because of the way Ohio public records work and how the process works. But I can say with confidence that if a teacher was under investigation in Hilliard and anything was found, that they were reported. And I can say with confidence that if a teacher was under investigation and before that investigation concluded, they left for whatever reason, that was reported in accordance with Ohio law. So I feel good about that.
I don't think it's something unique to our district either. I think it's
no. This is everywhere, unfortunately. And I do know that there was a staff member in Hilliard this last few months accused of unprofessional conduct with not one but two students, and that individual resigned and is now working in Dublin.
Yeah, so Dublin every school district can, when they hire a new teacher, inquire of the State Board of Education, is there any open investigations or anything brought forward about this person before we hire them? Mm-hmm. So it's on the school district to check that. And
I spoke to a current board member in Dublin about the situation. I said, "Hey, this is what I know. You need to investigate," and he did. And he had his HR department call Hilliard back. Is there anything?
Not Hilliard though. They need to contact the State Board of Education.
State Board of Education.
Yep.
Either way, they were not told of the investigation that even occurred.
So, are you saying Dublin did not Hilliard did not report the investigation?
I don't. So what I was told is Hilliard's HR department conducted their own investigation and didn't find anything. Now, I can't prove that because, the records, plus, honestly, whenever I do records requests, they stonewall me anyway. So here's my point that I want to make, though. This is the problem. This is what I think, and the state legislator is the only ones that can fix this, is that when a teacher or a staff member is accused of inappropriate conduct with a student, they immediately need to be suspended and not be allowed to transfer to any other school district until the investigation is complete. Because, as I've learned, for the entire state, we have 2 investigators at the ODE to handle some 20,000 plus investigations that are sitting on their desks right now. It's insane.
Well,
they're very busy apparently.
I think they're. I think when we had State Senator Brenner on, mm-hmm. I think he's one of the things is they have the two heads who run it, but the staff, they do have a staff that also, but it's overwhelmed. It's not like there's not a budget behind it to hire more people to aggressively pursue this. And I think that's, I think that's by design. It's okay, this has to exist by state law, this entity. Well, let's just figure out a way not to put money into it. And that's why they're handcuffed. But here's a great question on a fundamental philosophical level. So I'm a conservative constitutionalist /lean libertarian. Okay, I'm not a big fan of the government getting involved in things. Okay, that's kind of the whole point of conservatism, right? Get the hell out of my life, government. Don't tell me what to do. I'm fine. So it's a little. I do think the state has to step in on certain things just out of necessity. We can't have. I'm not an anarchist, okay, but I also do we need to be careful not to just start going, well, this needs to be fixed. Okay, we're going to give the state's going to, or we're going to have the power to take this over. We're going to enforce it. I worry that can turn around one day and come back to bite you. And then, the school boards are handcuffed by the state. The parents are handcuffed by the state in the sense of inability to really do or act on anything because these are now state required regulations. Is there a line that we have to be careful that we don't go over and just see too much in a good intended effort to kind of fix some mistakes? We end up creating another wrong, I guess.
Yeah. No, 100%. I in this situation, perhaps, I don't know because the records aren't public, and that's, where all the, what happened here starts coming in and people start asking questions. But what could have happened is the person was accused of something. I know we all, in our jobs, if we were accused of something, we would want a fair investigation.
Absolutely.
Perhaps the school district did an investigation. Perhaps they found that there was nothing to support the accusations, and therefore it wasn't reported. And I completely support that. I think the district should be the first line of defense. And I'm not so jaded yet that I think that there's any reason why the Hilliard School District specifically would want to brush something like that under the rug. They don't want people who are acting inappropriately with students in the district. Yeah. I feel confident about that. So there's a lot of things that could happen. But again, because of public record laws and the way all this works, we just don't know.
I'll second that. I don't think that they have any incentive to have people who have inappropriate relationships with kids in the building. I think they actively do not want that. I feel the same way that you do about it's hard to find that right blend of not enough government, but too much government. How much do we need?
Right.
Where is the line exactly?
But yet, it took us getting the Parents' Rights Bill passed in order to get the schools to stop hiding information from parents regarding their kids' mental health issues.
See, now that's exactly a great place where I'm talking about where that in that particular instance, that is so helpful. And that has had a positive effect.
So, what is your advice to parents who may be listening that are having problems in any school district with their kids being bullied or making inappropriate comments to their kids, or if they find inappropriate materials in the class? What would you tell them to do?
Start at your classroom level, at the building level. I've had great conversations with all my kids' teachers. They've all been great. That's who has the most hands-on and face time with your kid, and they'll be able to cue you in on exactly what's going on. That's the best advice that I would have is have as many conversations with you as you can with people who actually see your kid during the school day, and then that'll help you guide where to go with that. And if you don't have any luck with that, go bark up a different tree and keep going until you get somebody who will really engage you.
So same question, but regarding staff, like at Davidson, who are having problems, their fear of losing their job or being retaliated against. What advice would you give those employees?
You know what? I think one of my biggest issues with the teaching profession is how it's structured, in that it is almost impossible for a teacher to have any mobility in their career. You start at a district and you've got to stay with that district. Other districts aren't going to hire you if you've got
steps. You'll lose columns.
They won't even talk to you. It's not even that. They just don't. We won't hire someone with that many years' experience. And I think if I were a teacher and an educator, I would lobby my unions and my representatives to say, look, I want to be able to have this freedom to move within my career. And some of these things that you're advocating for clearly were done with good intentions, the intention of giving them job security, but they're handcuffs too. So if you really feel that way, I think one of the big solutions would be if they had that mobility and that ability to move. If I'm having a terrible time with my management, I'm going to go find another job. I feel terrible that teachers don't have that option other than leaving the teaching profession overall.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't know that. Once you get above like 5 years in a building, it's hard to go to a different building or different district because you're higher up on the pay scale, and they want to hire. There's lots of people who want to go into the profession. They want to hire somebody new out of school so they can keep the younger teachers are cheaper, so they want to keep the fresh young grads coming in to save money. So once you get above a certain point, it's really hard to change districts.
Wow. Well, I can't thank you two enough for being here.
Yeah, it's been pretty fun. Pretty fun to learn. When I say fun, I guess fun in the sense it's been fun to learn the inner workings in a way I wasn't as familiar with. That you guys got to peek behind the wizard curtain and realize the wizard is drunk and out of control. So.
Well, I'll reiterate, I think there's a lot of good-natured, hardworking people that are in a system where it's hard to push against the direction that this aircraft carrier is going. And I think just about everybody gets into it for the right reasons and they do the best that they can. But yeah, thank you guys for having us. This was fun.
Yes, thank you.
Absolutely.
Got the band back together, huh?
Yeah, I miss seeing you guys.
What do you guys want to run for this fall?
Yeah, no, not happening.
All right, just want to throw it out there.
No, I like to be behind the scenes and help people get elected. Yeah, no.
Well, we'll all be out there knocking doors here soon. So
Yeah,
it's about
it
that
is
time.
campaign season. So, all right. Well, for those of you who like what you've heard, please go to our YouTube channel, like us, subscribe to us, help us get this out to more and more people. Follow us on Facebook and tell your friends.
Share it.
Share it.
There we go.
This has been
Straight Shot Politics.
If you're a Hilliard or any other school district employee with information regarding school safety and you wish to share your experiences anonymously, you're welcome to reach out to us directly at email@straightshotpolitics.com. Your identity will be fully protected.